it's Teacher Laura. Welcome to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about 3 English language arts resources that you can use with your child as you supplement their education during this global pandemic that we find ourselves in. Today, while we are talking about English language arts, we are going to be focusing on reading and writing. So the first resource is going to be quite a bit different than the other resources that we're going to look at, but I have found this to be revolutionary in my teaching. So this one is actually a book for you to read as a parent. This book has really changed my view on how to foster a love of learning in my students. This is called The Book Whisperer, and it is quite simple, the approach that she suggests to help our students read. There are a lot of different strategies that we can use with our students, our children, but when it comes down to it, we really want to foster a love of reading in them, and that is going to carry into their adulthood and whatever educational endeavors they go into. They are going to really excel if they have a love of reading. So in this book, the author suggests allowing students to have choice in what they are reading, and that is the probably the most important takeaway that I had from this book personally. So for me, I am a very right-brained thinker. I tend to do really well in the math and the science fields, and not so well in the reading comprehension area. So when I was growing up, I always struggled with reading comprehension. School was generally easy for me, but reading comprehension was one thing that I just could not get. And even as an adult, sometimes I struggle with reading comprehension, admittedly. But when I heard some of the concepts that the book Whisperer mentioned, it kind of started to click with me why students may be turned off from reading if we focus on reading comprehension. So in my classroom, the way that I expressed this new knowledge about giving students choice and fostering that love of reading was through Dear Time. And a lot of schools use Dear Time, which just stands for drop everything and read. And during that time in my classroom, it was a priority for me to make the students comfortable and engaged. And I did that through allowing them to choose whatever book they wanted to choose. And in my classroom library, that meant having everything from picture books available to 500-page novels, because there were a variety of reading abilities in my classroom. There were also a variety of interests. So a student that might be a very high-level reader may not be interested in reading a 500-page novel. They might be more interested in reading something that is science-based that might be a rather short book, but a very advanced concept. So it was important to have a variety of options for my students. So your child will probably have a variety of interests, and you can cater that reading education to their level and their interests specifically. And I think that is really a cool aspect of being able to supplement your child's education, is that you know what your child needs and you can cater your education to them specifically. So giving them choice, any type of book that they want to read, as long as they are reading, that was the point, the priority. The second thing that I did was give them a comfortable environment to read in. So most of our days were spent at a desk or at a small group table. in our classroom where they did most of their learning. But during deer time, they were able to stay at their desk. They could sit underneath their desk. They could stretch out on the floor as long as they did not fall asleep. They had to be reading. They could go to a different location in the room. We had a reading nook, so sometimes they got the option to use the reading nook. So it just depended on how they felt comfortable and what was available to them in the classroom. And they were able to kind of position themselves in kind of wherever they wanted in the room as long as they were reading, not talking to a neighbor. And so that is the way that I kind of applied these concepts that I learned in the book Whisperer. And hopefully that will be helpful to you as you are learning how to foster a love of reading in your child. This first one is called ReadWorks, and this was my very favorite tool for reading comprehension. And this is a free website. You will need to create a login as a parent slash teacher. So in order to use this with your child, you will need an account. And your student can also create an account, or you can use what is called the class code and give your student that. So they do not necessarily need a login, but it could be helpful to them to have their own login if you see fit. So the first thing that I'm going to look at with you is this section that is called Find Content. And in my classroom, I use this with 5th graders most recently, and I would frequently use this for non-fiction informational text. And the nice thing is that you can integrate this with any social studies, science topics that you're studying. And you can do that by going to the topics section, and you can click on science. There's different categories of science. You can click on social studies and come here. Oftentimes in an elementary classroom, social studies is one of those topics that often does not get taught very exclusively. So a lot of times as teachers, we look for ways to integrate social studies with English language arts. And this is often a tool that I would use in order to do that. So if you are trying to do a social studies unit on a specific topic, like say you were working on world history, and you wanted to integrate that with English language arts, you could choose one of these articles so that they are not only practicing their reading skills, but they're also getting that information that they would need for social studies as well. So basically the way that this looks, you're going to click on whatever article you decide. This one is about the First World War. Your student will read the article, and these really vary a lot on length and kind of the complexity of the text. So as you kind of understand what your learner needs and what level they're at, you can adapt what kind of reading assignments you are giving them. So say you notice that your student is very gifted and they're finishing their on grade level assignments that you're giving them. If they're finishing those rather quickly and with accuracy is the key here, you can always choose a higher grade level and test them out there. So I know when I was using this with one of my early classes, I think this was probably my 2nd year of teaching, I had a student that was multiple grades above her grade level in her reading ability, and I would often assign her reading articles that were 2 grades above, and the awesome thing about ReadWorks is you can do that as soon as you notice that your student is excelling, or maybe they're struggling. and you can adjust that way. You could also search by lexile level. This is going to get a little bit more complicated. But if you know what level your child is reading at, you can search by lexile level here. And I'm not going to get into how to determine what lexile your child is at. But if you do a little bit of research on that, you can customize this even more. So the lexile changer is here. Grade level, in my opinion, is going to be the easiest way to kind of assign accurate reading articles to your student. So the other thing I wanted to show you, let's look at a different grade level. Let's go to 3rd grade and let's look at some science articles this time. Say we were learning about Earth and space science, one of my favorite topics. We can choose something like Pluto. This is always a hot topic with my students because they're like, why is Pluto not a planet anymore? And so we always have these good conversations about how scientists classify planets. So once they read the article, and the other nice feature, oh, this I love, you can have the article read to your child. So a lot of times I would have an auditory learner in my classroom, students that learn better if it is read to them rather than them reading it themselves. So that is an option as well. As long as they are not relying on that completely, as long as they're still doing the actual reading, if they listen to it as well, that can be very helpful for some students. The other nice thing is there are tabs up at the top that will show you different aspects of the article, so you can look at all of the vocabulary for this. But the one that was always really important for me in the classroom was this question set, and this is where I really was able to determine if the students were grasping the concepts, if they were able to comprehend the text. So these are nice because you have a good variety. So for instance, we have here a multiple choice question that is specifically about comprehending the content. And then we also have questions like this that are still multiple choice, like number 7, but are talking more about kind of the grammar side. And then you also have written answers as well. So not only are you testing their reading abilities, you are testing their vocabulary abilities, some grammar, as well as writing. And when we talk about English language arts, those are really the different components that we are looking for, especially at the elementary level. The only component that's really not here is spelling. And in some schools, spelling is very important at the elementary age. And some schools, it is not as important. So it kind of just depends on your school. But I will show a spelling resource that could be paired with ReadWorks as well. So that is what you can use with your student. If you have created your account as a parent, you will be able to see different features than the student side. So you will be able to look at the class that you've created. So your class would have whatever children you are teaching. And you can see their progress, and it will show you what their score is on each of the assignments. So this is a great tool. I think for reading comprehension, this makes it a little more interactive for the students. Instead of just reading from a book and writing down answers, they can do this with technology, and sometimes that is what students need to keep them engaged. So I always really liked using this resource. I will say that when we talk about reading, the most important thing, even beyond reading comprehension, is that your child develops a love for learning. So before I would even use ReadWorks in the classroom, I would do other reading activities with my students. Read alouds are really important, even for some of those older elementary students and sometimes even middle school, you would be surprised. But those read alouds I've noticed are kind of the tool that is used to foster that love of learning, especially at the younger ages. So read alouds are always important. And then as the students get older, giving them independent reading time is so critical, where they are choosing their own books and reading independently with really no other expectations besides the fact that they're simply reading. So in my classroom, we would do something called Dear Time. And Dear Time was anywhere from 15 minutes long to 30 minutes long, sometimes longer than that if we were having really good engagement. And during Dear Time, Dear just stands for drop everything and read. The students could basically get themselves in an environment that they wanted to be in to read. So that meant if they wanted to sit on the in the reading nook in my classroom, they could do that. If they wanted to sit on their desk, if they wanted to sit under their desk, if they wanted to stretch out on the floor, that was okay. And that environment, creating kind of like a cozy environment where they are comfortable, can be really critical to fostering that love of learning. So that is, in my opinion, much more important than the reading comprehension aspect of this. If your students love to read, they will eventually learn to comprehend text. It just kind of goes in that order. If you try to get them to comprehend text more so than actually loving reading, they will eventually stop reading, and that really defeats the purpose. So when you are doing that instruction for reading in your home, or as you're supplementing your child's education in some way, do keep that in mind, that we are trying to foster a love of reading, more so than really any other aspect of language arts. Okay, let's move on to a couple more resources here. So the next one that has been tried and true for me are my Scholastic writing resources. So if you just do a Google search for Scholastic and writing resources, you will probably come to this page. And this page is going to offer you a variety of different writing assignments that you can do with your students, and they will give you kind of some tools to do that. So I'm going to show you one specifically that I have used, and this one is a graphic organizer, which can be really, really helpful for kids to organize their thoughts while they are writing. So this is going to be kind of in that 3 to 5 range, third to fifth grade, which is what I have used it for. But you can also do this type of assignment, which is opinion writing, with younger students. It, of course, would be adapted. You're not going to have them writing essays, but building sentences and eventually getting them to write paragraphs. And that is more of the goal towards fifth grade. We want them to be able to write a few paragraphs about a certain topic. So if we scroll down, we'll see the actual resources that are available. So this one, you can talk to your students about introductory words, transition words, and opinion clues. As we keep scrolling down, there are going to be some more options available for you. And this is the part that I always found extremely useful. So the Oreo writing planner, I use this almost every time I taught opinion writing. So you're going to use this method where you're stating your opinion, and you're giving your reason for why it's correct. And then you're going to give an example. And then you're going to give a reason for why your opinion is correct. It's kind of cyclical. And this will be for each paragraph has different elements to it. An opinion, reason, an example, an opinion, reason, example, and then at the very end, restate your opinion. So my students use this as they kind of after they brainstormed what they would want to write their essay about, or sometimes I would give them a topic depending on what my students' kind of level was, what they were at with their writing skills. And this is the graphic organizer that we would use for that. If you have any questions related to any of these topics, please let me know in the comments. I would be happy to help you. If you can think of any other content that you would be interested in viewing on this channel related to educating your child during a global pandemic, please let me know in the comments. Until next time, happy teaching and learning with your kiddos.